Imagine a nation transforming its military in just a few short years, defying all expectations. In 2019, the Polish army was considered a mid-tier European force, comprising approximately 110,000 soldiers. Its arsenal largely consisted of aging Soviet-era tanks, limited artillery, and no fifth-generation aircraft. Its defense budget garnered polite nods at NATO summits, but little else. Had you suggested to military analysts back then that, within 6 years, Poland would be outspending the United States on defense as a percentage of its economy, ordering 1,000 main battle tanks from South Korea, constructing an 800-kilometer fortified wall along its eastern border, acquiring 96 Apache attack helicopters and 32 F-35 stealth fighters, and rapidly building a 300-strong army, the largest conventional ground force in Europe, you would likely have been dismissed. Yet, it is now 2026, and all of this is not only happening, but most of it is already under contract. Poland's defense budget for 2026 stands at 200 billion zlotys, which is approximately 47 billion euros or 55 billion US dollars at current exchange rates. This figure represents 8% of its gross domestic product, making Poland the highest defense spender in NATO relative to its economy. Not second, not tied, but the highest. Roughly a quarter of Poland's entire national budget is now allocated to defense, an extraordinary proportion for a European democracy not formally at war. The next highest spenders by GDP share are the Baltic states, clustering between 3% and 4%. Most major European powers are still striving to reach 5%. Poland is nearly double that, and this spending is far from symbolic. It is not being diverted into studies, committees, or white papers. It is being invested directly into hardware. The centerpiece of Poland's ground force transformation is a procurement program of such vast scale that it has no parallel in post-Cold War European history. Poland has ordered 1,000 K2 Black Panther main battle tanks from South Korea. The initial batch 180 units is being produced in South Korea and delivered directly. 48 of these have already arrived and are operational with the 20th Mechanized Brigade in the Warmia region of northeastern Poland, directly facing the Kaliningrad exclave. The remaining 820 tanks will be produced domestically in Poland under license as the K2PL variant, with production scheduled to commence in 2026. The K2PL includes modifications tailored to Polish requirements, such as hard-kill active protection systems, anti-unmanned aerial vehicle electronic warfare systems, additional composite and reactive armor, and a remote-controlled weapon station. Alongside the K2s, Poland also operates as American M1A2 Abrams tanks with 250 ordered and upgraded Leopard 2A5 and 2PL variants. Once all orders are fulfilled, Poland will operate 3 separate main battle tank ecosystems simultaneously. While this presents a significant logistical challenge and has drawn criticism from analysts concerned about the maintenance burden, the intent is clear. Poland aims to field more modern tanks than any other European NATO member, and by the end of the decade, it will achieve this goal. The artillery transformation runs in parallel. Poland has ordered 212 K9 Thunder self-propelled howitzers from South Korea, again with technology transfer and eventual domestic production. The K9 fires NATO standard 155mm rounds at ranges exceeding 40 kilometers with precision-guided munitions, and its automated loading system allows sustained rates of fire that Soviet-era systems cannot match. These complement Poland's existing Krab self-propelled howitzers, also 155mm systems built on a Korean chassis with a British turret, and a growing fleet of American HIMARS multiple launch rocket systems. Poland has further invested 3 billion zlotys into new 155mm ammunition production lines, positioning itself to become not just a consumer of artillery ammunition, but a regional supplier for Ukraine and its Baltic allies. In the air, Poland is acquiring 32 F-35A Lightning II stealth fighters. The first Polish pilot graduated from U.S. training in mid-2025, with full operational integration on track for 2026 to 2027. The F-35 provides Poland with a fifth-generation capability that, in Europe, only the UK, Italy, Norway, and the Netherlands currently possess. These will operate alongside Poland's existing fleet of F-60CD Block 52+ fighters and the aging, though still serviceable, MiG-29s that are being progressively retired. The F-35 procurement is paired with the Shield Integrated Air and Missile Defense Program, Poland's umbrella system designed to layer Patriot batteries, short-range air defense, and counter-drone capabilities into a comprehensive national shield. Poland has already taken delivery of its first Patriot configurations under an earlier order, and the SHIELD program aims to integrate these with Northrop Grumman's IBCS, the Integrated Battle Command System, which connects every sensor and shooter in the air defense network into a single digital architecture. The result, when complete, will be one of the most sophisticated integrated air defense systems in Europe. The counter-drone dimension deserves particular attention, because Poland has studied the Ukrainian battlefield more closely than almost any other NATO member. The East Shield program includes dedicated drone detection and tracking infrastructure utilizing radar, thermal imaging, and acoustic sensors. Polish industry is also investing heavily in domestic counter-unmanned aerial vehicle systems. The WB Group, Poland's most significant private defense company, produces the Fly-Eye reconnaissance drone and the Warmate loitering munition, systems that have been battle-tested in Ukrainian service. Poland is positioning itself not just as a buyer of drone technology, but as a developer and a potential exporter, building on the critical lessons being transmitted daily across its eastern border. The naval dimension, while less dramatic than the land forces buildup, is also undergoing significant transformation. The Michnik-class frigate program, developed in partnership with the British firm Babcock, will deliver 3 modern surface combatants to the Polish Navy, replacing aging Soviet-era vessels and establishing a credible maritime presence in the Baltic Sea. The Orca submarine program, though slower to materialize, aims to provide Poland with modern conventional submarines for the first time in seas that is increasingly contested by Russia's Baltic Fleet, by undersea cable threats, and by shadow fleet tankers. Poland's naval modernization fills a critical gap that has persisted for decades. And then there are the Apaches. 96 HA-64E Apache Guardian attack helicopters are being acquired under the CROC program through U.S. foreign military financing. When delivered, this will provide Poland with one of the largest dedicated attack helicopter fleets in Europe. The Apache is not merely a defensive weapon. It is an offensive system designed to hunt and destroy armored formations. Precisely the kind of capability NATO's eastern flank would need if Russian mechanized forces attempted to push through the Suwałki Gap or into the Baltic states. 2 U.S. foreign military financing loan guarantees, $4 billion in December 2024 and another $4 billion in July 2025, have cemented the Warsaw-Washington axis. Poland is now the single largest recipient of U.S. military financing in Europe. This relationship is not just transactional, it is structural. American equipment, American training, and American interoperability standards are being embedded into the Polish military at every level. Now consider the border, because what Poland is building there is unlike anything constructed in Europe since the Cold War. The East Shield, or Tarczów Wschód, is a national defense program announced in May 2024 to fortify Poland's borders with Belarus and Russia's Kaliningrad exclave. The investment exceeds 10 billion zlotys, approximately $5 billion spread over 4 years. Construction began in October 2024 and is already underway across 5 voivodeships, spanning roughly 800 kilometers of border. This is not merely a fence or a migration barrier. It is a military fortification system designed to slow, channel, and neutralize a conventional ground assault. The program consists of 3 defensive lines. The first is a network of anti-tank ditches dug to a depth of 4 meters. The second comprises 6 rows of star-shaped concrete anti-tank obstacles, or hedgehogs, with strategic spacing between the rows designed for the laying of mines. The third line consists of camouflaged bunkers built to accommodate armored vehicles and provide covered firing positions. Poland and the Baltic states withdrew from the Ottawa Convention, banning anti-personnel mines in July 2025, with the withdrawal taking effect in 2026. The Polish government justified this decision by stating it needed all available means to defend its territory. Baobab K mine scattering systems, capable of deploying 600 mines in under 20 minutes, are being delivered between 2026 and 2028. These are weapons that have not been part of European military planning for decades, and Poland is bringing them back. Beyond the physical barriers, the East Shield integrates electronic surveillance, drone detection, and tracking systems using radar, thermal imaging, and acoustic monitoring, along with logistics infrastructure including roads, bridges, ammunition, and civilian shelters. The program strategically leverages natural terrain. The Białystok marshes in the northeast proved during early analysis to be a significant natural obstacle, much as wetlands and forests slowed Russian advances in Ukraine in 2022. The fortification concept treats geography itself as a weapon, reinforcing natural choke points rather than attempting to defend every kilometer equally. The human dimension is the part of Poland's transformation that receives the least attention, yet it may ultimately determine whether the hardware investment truly succeeds. Poland's stated objective is to reach 300,000 military personnel by the late 2020s. As of early 2026, active strength stands at approximately 156,000 professional soldiers, with an additional 40,000 in the Territorial Defense Forces, a volunteer branch designed for unconventional warfare, infrastructure protection, and rear area security. The Territorial Defense Forces represent a uniquely Polish innovation within NATO, modeled partly on Finnish and Estonian reserve concepts, but adapted to Poland's specific geography and threat environment. Members serve part-time, train regularly, and are embedded in their local communities, meaning they know the terrain they would be defending in ways that a deployed conventional force cannot replicate. Reaching 300,000 personnel is both a demographic and institutional challenge. Poland's population is aging, competition for labor is intense, and the military must recruit, train, and retain people at a pace unprecedented in peacetime Europe. The 2026 budget reflects a degree of realism. The planned number of professional soldiers is 155,800, an increase but more modest than earlier ambitions suggested. Active reserve targets have been cut from 30,000 to just 3,000, and the Territorial Defense Forces target has been reduced from 44,000 to 40,000, while the aspiration remains 300,000. And the trajectory is upward. The gap between ambition and reality is the space where military transformations either succeed or stall. Step back now and consider what Poland has assembled and what it signifies for Europe. In less than 4 years, Poland has transitioned from a country that spent 2% of GDP on defense and operated Soviet-era hardware to the highest-spending NATO member by GDP share. Its procurement pipeline now includes 1,000 modern tanks, hundreds of self-propelled howitzers, HIMARS rocket launchers, fifth-generation fighters, Apache gunships, Patriot air defense systems, integrated battle management systems, and an 800-kilometer fortified border. The total defense spending, forecast for 2026 to 2030, exceeds $300 billion, with a quarter of Poland's entire state budget allocated to the military. The country has signed more foreign military procurement contracts than any other European nation in the same period. The strategic logic behind this transformation is straightforward and deeply rooted in geography. Poland shares borders with Russia's Kaliningrad exclave and Belarus, a Russian client state that has already been used as a staging area for hybrid operations, including the manufactured migration crisis of 2021. The Suwałki Gap, a 65-kilometer stretch of Polish-Lithuanian border sandwiched between Kaliningrad and Belarus, is considered the most strategically vulnerable point in all of NATO. Should Russia ever attempt to sever the Baltic states from the rest of the alliance, the Suwałki Gap is where it would likely happen. Poland's entire military buildup is oriented around making that scenario either impossible or so costly that no rational actor would attempt it. The lessons of Ukraine are embedded in every procurement decision. The K2 and K2PL tanks include active protection systems because Ukraine proved that tanks without APS are vulnerable to cheap drones and anti-tank missiles. The HIMARS orders reflect the devastating effectiveness of precision rocket artillery on the Ukrainian battlefield. The drone detection systems in the East Shield exist because Ukraine demonstrated that unmanned aerial systems have transformed reconnaissance, targeting, and direct attack. The mine-laying capability exists because Ukraine's extensive use of mines proved their enduring effectiveness in channeling and slowing mechanized forces. Poland is not building an army for a theoretical future conflict. It is building an army that incorporates every vital lesson from the war being fought next door. There are honest criticisms to be made. The financing structure relies heavily on borrowing. 37% of defense spending is funded through the Armed Forces Support Fund, an off-budget debt vehicle whose repayment will fall on the state budget between 2027 and 2031. Poland's structural deficit is among the fastest growing in the EU, and the country is already under the excessive deficit procedure. Furthermore, the logistical burden of operating 3 separate tank ecosystems, Leopard, Abrams, and K2, alongside multiple artillery platforms, helicopter types, and fighter aircraft is immense. This will require sustained investment in maintenance, spare parts, and training that the headline procurement numbers do not fully capture. The gap between purchased equipment and trained personnel to operate and maintain it is a vulnerability that money alone cannot close. However, the direction is unmistakable. Poland is building the most powerful conventional ground force in Europe, not as a long-term aspiration, but as an active, contracted, and partially delivered program that is reshaping the military balance on NATO's eastern flank in real time. Germany may have a larger defense budget in absolute terms. France may possess greater strategic autonomy. The UK may have superior intelligence integration and nuclear capability, but no other European country is investing with the urgency, the scale, and the single-minded focus on territorial defense that Poland is demonstrating right now. A Polish defense analyst captured the psychology behind the spending in a single sentence. Everyone in Europe is buying time, and the time we have has been bought with Ukrainians' blood and with the fact that Russia is not as strong as once feared. That calculation, that the window for rearmament is open but not indefinite, that Russia's temporary weakness is an opportunity rather than a permanent condition, drives every budget line, every procurement contract, and every concrete hedgehog being poured along the eastern border. Poland remembers what it means to be invaded. It remembers 1939. It remembers partition. It remembers decades of occupation, and it is building with extraordinary speed and at extraordinary cost the military capacity to ensure it never happens again. Whether the rest of Europe matches that urgency will determine whether NATO's eastern flank holds, or whether Poland is left to bear the weight alone. For now, the cranes are moving, the tanks are arriving, the trenches are being dug, and the biggest military transformation in modern European history is being paid for on credit by a country that has decided the cost of being unprepared is higher than the cost of debt. 3 defensive lines, 1,800 kilometers of fortification, and a nation that has looked east, seen what is coming, and chosen to be ready. That is not paranoia. That is history paying attention to itself.